Hello, welcome to the video on self-completion questionnaires. You may ask, what is a self-completion questionnaire? Well, it's also known as a self-administered questionnaire. This is a situation where the respondent is by themselves. There is no interviewer in their locality or sitting beside them. The respondent actually answers the questionnaire themselves. And it may be that they have it in paper format or electronically. And then the respondent is obliged to return the questionnaire, be it by email or through the internet by choosing the word done or submit, or it could be by self-addressed envelope or through a collection point. The self-completion questionnaire actually tends to have very short questions, few number of questions. They are easy to follow in terms of the design, and because the nature of the design is quite simple, and it is quite short so as to reduce the respondent fatigue. Some of these points are even further elaborated upon when we look at the advantages of self-completion questionnaires. And those advantages are that it is cheaper and quicker to administer, and you can reach a wide population base, especially through electronic means such as email, but make sure you don't breach the university's or your institution's spam limitations or guidelines. No interviewer variability, in that the interviewer cannot bias the responses of the respondent because they are not there in the time that the respondent is completing the survey. And the other advantage is that basically it's convenient for the respondent to complete in their own time. However, there are many disadvantages. Those disadvantages are that you can't probe or prompt the respondent because most of the questions are closed questions, and also the interviewer is not actually present when the respondent is completing the survey. There's few open-ended questions. The size of the questionnaire in printed format could be on a number of pages, and that in itself may even put off the respondent in completing the survey, or may not actually spend the time required to complete the survey. You can't always ensure that the right person has actually answered the survey for you. You can't collect additional data because, again, you're dependent on the respondent to complete the survey, and nobody is there to oversee the collection of more information. You do exclude people with limited literacy rates, or people who are typically non-internet users if you're doing it electronically. And by the way, you have a lower response rate with self-administered questionnaires. So how can we improve the response rate to postal questionnaires? And that could be postal, even posted online on the internet. Since response rate levels are low with this form of surveying, there's a risk of sample bias. A rate of 60% plus is needed to be acceptable. Now, I've been researching a long time, and I actually don't think I've actually even ever got 60%. So it is quite difficult to get such a high level of respondents. But you could improve your rates by writing a good covering letter, including a stamped addressed envelope for a postal survey, issuing reminders, maybe using shorter questionnaires on the reminder if needs be, ensuring that you have clear instructions, using a layout that is attractive to the respondent, and maybe even providing them with an incentive, such as a monetary incentive or maybe some award or something like that. So on designing the self-completed questionnaire, use an uncluttered layout, neither too short and cramped nor too long and bulky. Aim for the clear professional presentation. Consider the variety of fonts, of using capital letters, using bold and italics, but don't overdo it, but also be consistent. Arrange fixed answers vertically. Why? Because this makes the questionnaire less confusing to read, because then questions can be distinguished from answers, and the respondent is less likely to make a mistake. They will know which box is related to the answer they are ticking, and the questionnaire is easier to pre-code. Give clear indications of how to respond. It's very simple instructions indicating the choice of answer, a tick, a circle, an underline, an X. Please inform them of what to do. If more than one answer can be given, sometimes you might want the respondent to select a number of possibilities from a list. We'll tell them that. Put it in brackets after the question. Indicate all that apply. Keep questions and answers together. Never spread a question over 2 pages. Locate the answer alongside each corresponding question, particularly for questions involving Likert scales, like a 5 scaled, from strongly agree to strongly disagree, using a 5-point scale. So how do we actually format a Likert scale? Well, I have an example here. Here we actually have strongly agree, U is undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree. And the indication here is for the person to circle the appropriate answer. Now, obviously, this is when it's in a postal survey. For an online survey, they would maybe tick the box that is beside the answer that reflects their answer. A diary, interestingly, can be used as a form of self-completion questionnaire. It can be with closed entries, like a questionnaire. It can reduce error due to memory problems, but can be quite an intrusive method than a questionnaire, because you might be asking a lot more personal questions through a diary format. So, guidelines for preparing a diary for quantitative research. Corti, 1993, says to provide clear instructions on how to complete the diary and how often. Provide sort of little vignettes of examples of a completed diary entry. And this is where we have maybe the closed-ended part. Include the checklist of items, events, or behaviours to include. And show blocks of time in columns if time is an element that you want to examine. So finally, just using diaries as a form of quantitative research, which is also a self-completion format, has some advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is obviously the time and the reflection of the person's attitudes, behaviours, or opinions as a specific time frame. You can show a chronological order of events, useful for personal or sensitive issues. The disadvantages is the cost of producing diaries and monitoring completion. The respondents might be enthusiastic at the beginning, but then they might get bored, or fatigue and attrition could actually come into play. And there could be maybe blanks in the diary, and then that part of the diary is not used within the research. And also, on behalf of the participant, they're selective in including what to include.